Premium Bandai has just finally revealed all of the details of the upcoming first entry in the new complete style gigantic line, the Titan Sword from Kamen Rider Kuuga. So we first saw this in this whole debut of this line a couple weeks ago at the Tokyo Toy Fair, but at the time there was no pre-orders available or release date or price point, and we knew that that was going to be coming at the end of the month, and here we are. So let's talk about the Titan Sword. So before we get to the fine details of the Titan Sword, let's talk about Complete Style Gigantic. So I mentioned it in my Tokyo Toy Fair video about this new line that's going to be an offshoot of the Complete Selection Modification line, and as of right now it's going to be focusing primarily on Kamen Rider, although I don't know if it's going to eventually branch out to Sentai or maybe other different brands and such like that, because Complete Selection Modification isn't just Kamen Rider. I know there's Digimon and stuff like that that's involved in CSM and stuff like that, so it's definitely possible. But for right now, at least, we're going to be doing just Kamen Rider stuff here in this new line, and it's pretty cool. So we already had some replica sized Kamen Rider weapons in the past. I think maybe this was sort of a testing ground, but Kamen Rider Saber did get that full version of the Kaiken Rekka, which could of course also become Nagare and Nikizuchi, and then of course Bandai China, which I don't think has been announced for a Bandai Japan release yet, is doing Falchion Sword Kyomu, and those are fantastic. I mean, they have electronics, they have sounds, they have transformation stuff and everything in there, but they don't actually fit into the original drivers, because of course they don't. They're more prop-sized swords. So this was kind of an exploration into that sort of idea, and maybe those sold well enough for Bandai to consider doing other Kamen Rider weapons and everything. Sentai has even done full-size weapons, or at least swords, with the Ryusoul Ken and the Gaisou Ken. So Premium Bandai has definitely been the place to do gigantic swords, for sure. And so this first entry here is the Titan Sword from Kamen Rider Kuuga, which at first I kind of thought was very random for them to pick as their first choice, but thinking about it for longer, I think it does kind of make sense. Kuuga, of course, is a very big fan favorite rider season. It's the first entry in the Heisei era, so there's a lot of history and nostalgia and importance there from the series, let alone just that. But of course also this is one of the sort of first Kamen Rider swords. There was Kamen Riders before this that used swords, of course Black, or Black RX more specifically, used the Rebel Cane, which was always a very famous kind of Kamen Rider sword, and Shadow Moon and stuff like that had swords, even though they're somewhat not considered a Kamen Rider depending on who you ask. But the Titan Sword is kind of the first modern Kamen Rider sword, something that doesn't necessarily just look completely toyetic, but definitely is relatively toyetic. Of course, it got a deluxe toy back in the day, 22 years ago when Kuuga aired, and now is getting this full-size replica here, which is really, really cool. It looks absolutely beautiful, and it actually costs a little bit less than I was expecting, surprisingly so. So we can see here from the product images, you're going to get a full-size replica of the Titan Sword, which is going to be 35 inches long, which is a very nice size. I mean, I'm assuming that's pretty one-to-one scale of how it is in the show, or close to it at least. And I mean, it just looks incredible. All the detailing and all the sculpting on the Grongi language and everything on there, it just looks absolutely incredible, and I'm sure will absolutely go perfectly with anybody who has the CSM Kuuga belt or any of the Kuuga display or anything like that. It will just look very nice on your shelf. It is going to have electronics for some finisher attacks and some slashing sounds and everything, which is nice to see. I wasn't sure if this was just going to be just kind of not like a foam sword or anything like that, but just kind of it is more of a prop, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be more of a prop than an interactive sort of toy, but it is going to have some sounds and everything like that, which is nice to see. And of course, if you know anything about Kamen Rider Kuuga, all of his forms, his main 4 forms, got upgrade forms called Rising forms, and Rising Titan is a thing that existed as well, and when that happens, his weapons from the forms got upgraded as well. And so you're going to get some upgraded pieces to make this the Rising Titan Sword, which essentially just is a big golden armor piece you slide over the blade, almost like a sheath, but not really. But it will extend the size of the sword to 44 inches, which is a big sword. That's all I can say on that front. I mean, it's definitely a big sword, which is just really, really cool, and I love it. I love this a lot. I'm not getting it though, because it is very expensive, and I don't have that much of a personal tie or connection to Kuuga. Kuuga is very cool, and I'm trying to think if there's certain Kamen Rider weapons that I would definitely be very interested in picking up if we ever got them in Complete Style Gigantic. But I do think that they kind of mentioned about how they're not necessarily going to be doing swords and stuff that would work with CSM gimmicks. So we might not get a Muso Saber or a DJ gun, because they wouldn't necessarily make them because lock seats, for example, in the show are a lot bigger than what they would be in the toy line. So it wouldn't really work to have the CSM lock seats be compatible with a prop size DJ gun or Muso Saber, that kind of thing. So that kind of is an interesting point that they kind of were bringing about that, because a lot of Kamen Rider weapons from like the second half of the Heisei era or the Reiwa era either use the gimmick in a very important capacity or can take the gimmick or have some sort of gimmick to it. They're like, one weapon I could think of that doesn't like actually take the gimmick or the main series gimmick is the Gongon Saber from Kamen Rider Ghost. Like, that doesn't take icons at all, but you do have all the Ghost gadgets that can clip onto it, which you could probably make CSM versions of or complete style gigantic versions of. I would love to see the Gongon Saber, something, I don't even know if that would be possible since it does have all the weapon changes and everything. But speaking of like weapon changes, I know a lot of people were saying like a Dengasher would work for this line, and I could definitely see something like that happening. Which also, like, I don't know if this is just going to be swords. I mean, I think they're kind of just talking about how this is going to be prop weapons, so we could probably get different Kamen Rider guns or other weapons that are not guns and swords. You know, there's plenty of different options here from numerous different Kamen Rider seasons. Like, it would be really cool if maybe this is how we could get some other visors from Ryuki, which then again would take cards, so that might not work, but like they did the drag visor at like prop scale, so like that might work. I don't know, it's kind of hard to say like what would work, how much this will interact with CSM, how much it will not. It's definitely in the same sort of branding or idea as CSM, but like it's also its own thing. Now, of course, the big question is, how much does this cost? And surprisingly, it's expensive, but not as expensive as I would have expected for something like this. It is going to be retailing for 19,800 yen, which if you didn't know, the yen is rather weak right now, so when you convert that to USD, it's like $145-ish. Now, Toku Collectibles does have it up for order right now as a Japan release for $275, which yes, is definitely a pretty big increase, but like you gotta think that factors in shipping and everything like that, which I get it, this is gonna be a huge thing to ship. However, you don't have to spend $275 on it, though, which is the December release, by the way, because there will be a US release of this via Team Kamen Rider and Bluefin, so we don't actually have a price point on that one yet, and it's not up for pre-order via the US release yet, but that should be at least a little bit cheaper. I'm still expecting it's probably going to be somewhere in the ballpark of $200, but even so, for something like this, I don't know what else people would have expected. I was expecting like $300 or something for this for the Titan Sword. Either way, I'm still not getting it. I just cannot afford to. I don't even know where I'll put this though. Even though it does have a nice display stand, which I did not mention so now. It has like a nice rock display stand, which does look pretty good. But like, I don't know where this would go. Like I said, don't have that much of a personal attachment to Kamen Rider Kuuga, but for fans who do, I definitely see how this is a big, wanted item or holy grail item or something for somebody's collection. So I will be putting the Toku Collectibles link down in the description below. Not sponsored or anything like that. Just really like the store. So if you want to go and get the Japanese release, it's available now. And the US release should be coming soon with a release date that'll be sometime after December, probably like March or something, maybe like February or March of 2023, something like that. Which is nice that it's getting a US release for something like this, and how big it is. That kind of discount that the US releases bring definitely can be appreciated in a case like this. So also in the description below will be a link to the kind of the Bandai demonstration video of this, just kind of showing you a nice little prototype of it. And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down in the comments below. Are you going to pick up the Titan Sword? What weapons would you like to see Bandai make in the complete style gigantic line? And anything else you want to talk about down in the comments below? I'd love to hear it. So until next time, you guys can follow me on Twitter at LivingRangerKey or LandFigPR, and I'll see you all next time.